Oh yeah. Alright, so my name is Anthony Awgul. I am 19 years old. I live down in Campground, Pennsylvania. I am currently fishing in the FLW Northeast Bass Fishing League. I've been fishing, this is going to be my second year here. I fished as a co-angler last year, and this is my first year as a boater. I purchased a Nitro 929 bass boat with 225 horsepower Mercury on it. So it gets me going pretty well. So yeah, fishing is just my passion. I've been doing it ever since I was 2 years old. It's all I ever want to do for a career. So I'm just doing everything I can to make tournament fishing a career. I have my own bait company called Menace Baits. I'm going to be talking a little bit about today, my products, how I equip them and how I use them in my tournaments and everything. So, like I said, we'll be talking a little bit about jigs today. So, probably, in my opinion, the most effective fishing lure because it works in literally any condition you encounter, any situation, any location, any time of the year, you name it, I'm going to have a jig tied on my rod. So, we'll be talking about the equipment I use to fish jigs, how I fish them, my selection, every little bit of ins and outs in it. So, I mean, starting off the bat, we'll be talking about the rod that we're going to be using. So, in my hands here I have a Quantum Fishing 7-foot 10-inch heavy action casting rod. So there's a few things I look for in a jig rod. Jig fishing requires a lot of sensitivity. So what I'm going to be doing is trying to find a rod with a really good fast tip on it. And what that's going to do is let me feel those bites. So it's a heavy rod, don't get me wrong, but it's got that super soft, fast tip that's going to help me feel those bites. Working down the rod, a parabolic bend comes in really handy because it's going to, see, with quantum fishing, they mathematically engineered these rods to distribute the weight load so you get as much pressure on the fish as possible while still having an effective rod. There's a lot of guides on this one, which increases the surface area on the line, helping me feel more bites as well, and an absolute solid backbone. I mean, this is a solid fishing rod, so when I'm fishing these jigs in heavy cover, catching big fish out of them, I can handle it. And, you know, this rod will be able to handle it. It handles a heavy line perfectly. And talking reels, I like a very strong reel. Quantum Fishing makes a lot of them. This one here happens to be a Quantum Kevin Van Dam Signature Series reel. I use a Smoke HD often. That's got a lot of line capacity on it. Lets me put a lot of that big, thick line that I like. A fast gear ratio is important to me, and that's why I use these Quantum casting reels, because I have a 7.0 to 1 gear ratio reel, which means I can pick up a lot more line than you would if you're using a spinning rod or a slower bait casting reel. So I can really use these efficiently, cover a lot of water, and really haul those big fish out of the way from the cover that I'm trying to fish. And then talking about the line I'm going to be using with the jigs, there's two options. I'm either going to be fishing fluorocarbon or braid. Now, fluorocarbon is my go-to line, and I specifically use 20-pound fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon, as you see here, it's really clear, it's invisible underwater. It's got very little stretch, so I know you guys probably use monofilament if you ever fished before. It's like nylon fishing, it's very stretchy. And fluorocarbon is similar to that, but it's not made of that. It's specially designed to not stretch, it sinks, so it's very great finesse line, so I can feed a lot to my jig. The fish don't see it, it's just the perfect presentation. Now though, when I'm fishing heavy cover, thick grass, lots of wood, and I need that extra strength and zero stretch, that's when I'm going to go to 65-pound braid. And I like that number because it gives me the confidence to haul big fish out of there, set the hook very hard, get them away from the cover, and the braid cuts through grass very well. That's why I like it. So it's able to handle that.
My question.
Yes.
You use straight braid right to the jig?
Yes.
You don't bother with a leader?
Absolutely not. I know a lot of people do, and it all comes down to preference. There's no right or wrong answer. Personally, I'm either throwing straight fluorocarbon or straight braid. I don't
like what brand? Like a fluoro?
So I use there's Suffix braid, Suffix 832.
You like that?
It's just my go-to. I'll use 65-pound braid and the Suffix 20-pound fluorocarbon.
So you use same brand? Right.
Yep, yeah, I use it. It's just what I have confidence in. You got to find whatever works for you, but Suffix has never let me down, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and go with. And yeah, it's just a great choice. It lasts a long time. You know, you've obviously fished braid, so you know that braid sometimes loses its color.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't happen as fast. It keeps its strength, and it becomes better the more you fish it, in my opinion. That's why I like it. But on these casting setups, I don't like using braid to fluorocarbon. The only time I'll do that is on my drop shot and finesse setups, on my spinning rods. Otherwise, I'm just fishing straight braid fluorocarbon. Because when I'm using that straight braid, I'm fishing heavy grass, and the little bit of invisibility by the fluorocarbon, there's no benefit.
If they're going to hit it, they're going to hit it.
Absolutely. It's not going to make a difference. It's going to give you more strength, and it's one less thing to go wrong. You know
right. Well, that was my thing. I'd rather tie right.
You don't want that going wrong. So I'm going to try to minimize any little extra thing and keep it simple. The jig we're going to be using. So I don't know if any of you ever fished a jig before, or even know what a jig is, but this is a traditional model of a jig right here. You got a lead head here, a skirt attached to it, which gives us some action under the water. You got a hook, a soft plastic trailer which you put on yourself, and a weed guard. Right. Now the only problem with this setup, and the problem that I've had for a long time, it doesn't come through cover very well. I mean, it's advertised to do that, and it's supposed to be weedless and snag proof, but I had problems. It would get stuck in the rocks, it would get stuck in the trees. I'd be pulling a wad of grass back to the boat with it. It's like, what's the point of this? Well, that weed guard will collapse and expose that hook to stumps, to rocks, to grass. It's very ineffective. Not to mention, when I go to get a good hook set in on a fish, there's a weed guard in the way. That's just going to limit my hook set. It also looks a lot less natural. So I fixed this problem by creating a new product in my new company called Menace Baits. It's called the original Menace Jig because it's the greatest thread on the water. So you got a lead head here, and you got a skirt still, but I lose the weed guard. And instead, I'm going to use an offset hook, which is going to let you Texas rig your plastic trailer. You guys can come take a look at that.
Yeah, it's right in the body.
Yep, that is 100% weedless and snag proof. This jig is going to be able to go into grass, come out of it. It's going to be able to come through wood and laydowns. It's going to be able to crawl over rocks. It's literally perfect. It's the only jig I'm going to be using in my box. The best way to go. So that's the jig I'm going to be using. As far as color goes, I like to keep it simple. You know, I either match the hatch, so if I'm fishing in a lake with a lot of bluegill in it, I'm going to be throwing some green baits or bluegill color. If I'm fishing in a lake where the fish are feeding on shad, alewives, or shiners, I'm going to be going with something that looks like a shad. I mean, that's just keeping it simple. If they're feeding on crayfish, show them something that's brown. Now, watercolor does have some effect on that, so in murkier water, I like a darker color, like the black and blue. That's just a hard color to beat, because the fish can see it really well. It creates a good silhouette against the water, and helps them find that bait. And I have caught lots of really good fish in clear water in the black and blue, so color isn't as important as presentation. That's what it really comes down to in jig fishing. It's about where you're putting your jig, how you're fishing your jig, and what you're showing them. I mean, for example, one time I was fishing up in the Poconos, and I was using a 1/4 ounce green pumpkin Menace jig. I caught 150 fish on it, and my line snapped on 100 and some. That's a rough estimate because I was catching so many fish. The line snapped because I was catching so many fish. The fish were wearing down on my line. The line broke, and I ran out. That was my last one. It lasted me all week. So I picked up 1/4 ounce black and blue, put a trailer on, and got to work and had the same exact results. They didn't care what color it was, as long as it was a jig being swam over the grass. That's all they wanted. The color was very not important at that time. Sometimes it is. You just got to find what the fish want. You got to do what's comfortable for you. As far as the jig size, personally, I'm a tournament fisherman. I try to get my 5 fish in the boat first, and sometimes that involves downsizing with my baits to get more bites. Because you know, if you're using something smaller, on average you're going to catch the smaller fish also. That's not always the case. Most of my big fish that I've caught come on that little 1/4 ounce jig there, just because it's my confidence bait. But you got to think, if you're using a smaller bait, there's a lot more tendency to catch smaller fish as well as bigger fish. If I upsize my bait to a big 1/2 ounce jig, or one of my dredger jigs, it's a huge 1 ounce jig, chances are those little fish are going to swim away and get scared of it, and the big fish, those are the ones that are going to be paying attention. So it's on average a larger fish bait. But that, like I said, that 1/4 ounce size, my smallest size with a 3/0 VMC hook, it's just my go-to setup. I have it tied on wherever I go, whether I'm fishing largemouth, smallmouth, whether I'm fishing grass, docks. beach, rocks, you name it. I always have it titled. It has a really, really good fall in the water column. That quarter ounce, it falls nice and slowly at a perfect rate, and I can feel it a little bit on the hook. That's what I'm looking for. Because 99% of those bites occur on the fall, and I want to maximize that. That's my strike zone. I want that bait to fall as long as possible. I'm going to get that with the quarter ounce jig. Now, when I'm fishing a little bit murkier water, or I'm fishing a little bit heavier cover, or I'm fishing deeper, I might need to upsize my bait to a 3/8 ounce head, like I got here on my rod. It's a little heavier, it's going to help me feel what's on the bottom a little more. It's also, when I'm fishing murkier water, when the fish can't see it on the fall anyway, I need it to hit him on the head, I'm going to go with the 3/8 ounce. Hit him on the head, might even go up to a 1/2 ounce. Again, you just got to find what works for you. Sometimes it'll be windy. I have trouble casting the little quarter ounce, so I'm going to need to up my bait to a 3/8 ounce. So just got to find what works. And the trailer I'm using, that's pretty important because you just gotta pick what works for you. Again, I like the bruiser baits, just any kind of crawl trailer you find. You can get them anywhere you want, but that's just what I use, bruiser baits. And it's just like you can use any kind of imitation you want and make it whatever you want. I like to make it look like a swimming crawl, because I can do anything with it. I can cast it out, drag it on the bottom, make it look like a crayfish, and I can swim it and it'll actually look like a bait fish because those claws will be kicking. It's so much action. So that's what I'll use. And then on my live series swim jigs, they already come pre-rigged with a swim trailer, and what that's going to do is help it look like a bait fish escaping in the water column. It's going to create a reaction point. It's just a really cool setup. So the techniques we're going to use to fish these jigs, I narrowed it down to my 3 favorite presentations that I most typically offer. My first way I'm going to fish a jig is probably my favorite way, and that's called swimming a jig. And what that involves is pretty much casting out your bait and reeling it back to the boat. Now, it's a lot more complicated than that, but that's pretty much what you're doing. You're casting it out, reeling it, keeping it off the bottom, making it come through the water very fast. It's going to cover water. And it's important to use this because it covers water. Like I said, as a tournament angler, I have only 8 hours a day to catch my 5 biggest fish. That involves covering a lot of water sometimes, especially when I go to a new lake or something. I want to burn down a bank and find the sweet spots on the bank. Yeah, I can use my electronics, I can use maps, whatever I want to do, but a good way to find where the fish are is just to throw a bait. Roll down the bank, trolling motor on high speed, casting and reeling, and just trying to find some fish that are willing to bite. And that's where the swim jig comes in handy. I'll find those fish and I'll slow down later. Finding those fish is critical. And I'll tell you what, sometimes they're just on a swim jig bite. They get so aggressive when they hit it, it's so much fun. So I'll pick up the swim jig and use it all day sometimes. So when I'm swimming the jig, again, I'm going to be using the same rod setup. I'm going to be casting it out, and I personally like to hold my rod either to my side, on an angle facing the opposite way, or up top, almost behind my head. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm using my tip to feel. If I'm holding the rod like this, a lot of people like this because you're always ready for a hook set. Me personally, I miss fish a little more. If I'm holding the rod like this, I'm not going to be using the tip. You see, it's just straight to the bait. I'm not getting any action in the tip. Exactly. Now, when I hold my rod over here, every time to the handle, I'm feeling the grass I'm coming over. If I have to pop my bait, I'm feeling the sticks and stumps I run into. And most importantly, I'm feeling a bite, because sometimes they can be subtle, a lot of times they just crash the bait. But I'll be holding it out here, I'll feel that tick. Once I feel that bite, I'm going to reel my slack in, up to the fish, and then give a good solid hook set straight above my head. That's going to set the hook in the roof of the fish's mouth. You won't miss it. If I'm not doing that, if I'm fishing shallower water, same exact thing. I'll hold it up here, usually at the end of a retrieve. I'm still using that tip to make sure that I'm feeling that bait down there, and that's what's most important there. Oh yeah. But long story short, with the swimming jig is it's a reaction bait. So if I was to take a ball and throw it to one of you guys, what are you going to do? You're going to catch it. You don't want to let it hit your face. Well, fish, when you're taking a bait fish presentation, swimming it into them very fast, they're opportunistic feeders. They're not going to let that get away. It's like they have a split second to look at it. They have to make a decision now. Do I eat it or do I miss out on the opportunity of a free meal? I'll tell you what, you put a Menace jig, swim jig in their face, they're going to eat it a lot of the times. That's why I rely on it literally everywhere I go. Any part of the country, any lake, any condition. Swimming jig's a good way to cover water, catch a lot of fish. Flipping jigs, this is probably my go-to big fish technique, because big fish, they own the cover. They own a piece of cover. They competed for it, and they're the dominant predator of an area oftentimes. So you're going to find the biggest bass, like you see over there, that fish mount there, they're going to be hiding in big trees and laydowns. They're going to be hiding in thick grass. They're going to be hiding on docks, that man-made docks and everything, because there's a lot of bait there, and they competed all the other fish out. That's where you're going to go find your big fish. Now, it's important that you use the Menace jig, because you can get it in the cover and out of the cover. You can put this bait in places that you can't put other baits, so that's why it's really important. And you're still going to get them, you're going to get a good hook set on them, and you get the bait back. So when I'm flipping the bait, again, I want my heavy rod. I'm often using 20-pound fluorocarbon unless I'm fishing that grass, because I need to cut through the grass. I'm going to give a nice underhand pitch. I'm going to let it reach the cover, and it's going to subtly hit the water. I don't want to create a huge splash, because oftentimes I'll be right there to the cover. My 21-foot boat will be positioned, and there's a dock right there, and I'll flip it to that dock really subtly, so that big fish that's hiding there can't get spooked. You won't hear anything. And I'm going to let it fall in a slack line here, so I'm going to keep my line slack. And what that's going to do, that bait's going to fall straight down, right into the cover. If I keep any tension on that line, it's going to start swinging away from the cover. I don't want to do that. I want to avoid that. And by the time that bait hits the bottom, if there's a fish there, I'll tell you what, he's probably got it in his mouth already. I'll reel up and I'll feel him start swimming.
Welcome to the Outdoorsman's Expo 2018. In 10 minutes, Triple C Cutlery, Lou Collins, will be giving knife sharpening demonstrations over to the left of the venue. 12 o'clock, Triple C Cutlery, Lou Collins.
All right, going off flipping jigs a little more. I kind of developed my own technique that I call power finesse fishing. So yeah, while you're flipping jigs into cover, you're stationary. You're not moving fast. You're letting the bait do the work. What I'll do is let's say there's a shoreline with a lot of stumps, a lot of trees, and a lot of cover. I'm going to move relatively fast. I'm going to go over here, I'm going to flip my bait over to the tree, let it fall. If a fish hasn't hit it on the first fall, I'm going to pull it up and move on to the next one. I'm going to cover water, I'm going to go down the whole entire shoreline until I'm finding where the fish are relating to. And I'll do this, and I'll find oftentimes that, let's say, sometimes the fish are only at the beginning logs and cover of a cove. They're not going to be any further back. What I can do when I find that information is replicate. So covering water, moving fast, while still fishing slow. It's a technique that takes a lot of refining and detail, and not everyone's comfortable with it. So you just got to find, again, what works for you and what you are comfortable doing. So that's pretty much flipping jigs. And lastly, the last area of focus is dragging jigs. Now this is your most common technique. You think about jig fishing, you're probably dragging jigs. All this involves, you're going to swing it out here. I'm going to cast it out. I'm not going to hook you, I promise. I have a little bit of practice. And I'm going to just simply drag that along the bottom. I'm making it look like an injured bait fish on the bottom of the lake. I'm making it look like a crayfish. I'm making it look like whatever I want. Now you can think though, I'm fishing very slowly. You got to say, how inefficient is that? As a tournament angler, I can't cover a stretch of water all day, because what if there's no fish in that stretch? That is such a waste of time to spend on casting that bait out, taking 5 minutes to retrieve it back to the boat. I'm not going to do that. That's why I'm going to swim the jig first and try to find the fish. I'm going to use my electronics and try to find the sweet spot. Then I'll slow down. So for example, at one of my favorite lakes down in Reading, Pennsylvania, called Blue Marsh, there's a spot, there's a long shoreline, probably a good mile or so. And there's a spot where it goes from bluff wall rock to pebble rock. And at that spot is where I'm going to position my boat and focus, and that's where I'll cast my baits, and I'm going to work it really slow over, because I know fish like differences and transitions. I'm going to focus on just the sweet spots. And again, that's where it's going to come in handy that I use my rod to feel. I'll sometimes cast it out and drag along the bottom to feel what's down there. So if I'm feeling, let's say I'm feeling nothing, I'm feeling nothing, all of a sudden, with my super sensitive quantum scale casting rod, I start feeling rocks down there. Guess what? That's a transition spot. That's where the fish are going to set up. I'm going to really work that slow. I'm going to remember that spot because I'm going to cast it back there and try to work it, or I might go over and grab it with my electronics. But that's what I'm looking for. And when I'm working the bait, you got to find again what the fish want. Most of the time, it's just a simple sweep of the rod. Again, I'm going to hold it the same way I'm doing with the swimming jig, because I want to use my tip to feel. It's all about sensitivity. I'm going to use my rod and just sweep it off to the side, or I'm going to use my rod and sweep it above my head. So I can use that tip to feel what's down there. And when a bite occurs, you're going to feel the same thing you do when you swim a jig. It's going to tick, tick. I'm going to reel up, keep that line straight, and get a top with a hook set over the head. That's just the best way to do it. You're going to hook them in the roof of the mouth every time. Sometimes I like to give the jig a couple hops, like a crayfish almost would on the bottom, like little 1-2 never hurts. But you just got to see what the fish want to be dialed into. And again, it's important when you're dragging jigs, because I'm sure you guys fish on the bottom of the lakes before. What do? You get hung up on grass, you get snagged on rocks, you catch a tree. You don't want to be doing that. You want to be spending more time fishing. And with that Menace jig, that's going to be on the bottom of the water. You're going to be going over the rocks. You're going to be creating reaction strikes doing that. You're going to be coming through the grass. You're going to be coming through the wood. It's such more of an efficient tool. You're not going to be spending time trying to get it unstuck. You're not going to be losing baits here and there. So you just want to be fishing Menace jig if you're going to be dragging the jigs on the bottom. So those are your 3 areas of focus. You just got to see what the fish want. A couple tips and tricks that I like using when I'm jig fishing. You might notice on my rod here, I have this little mechanism here, and this is called a trigger happy comfort grip. And what that does is it gives me a more comfortable and relaxed grip on my rod, if that makes any sense. And when I'm working this bait here, I'm not death gripping my rod anymore to get a handle on it. It's really relaxed, it's comfortable now, and it gives me more grip. So I can just feather this rod, and any little, anything I feel on that rod, I can feel a fish breathe on this bait if I'm just holding it like that. It's amazing. You get so much more sensitivity, and I also get more grip and power with a good hook set. And sometimes what I like to do, especially when the bite gets tough, or I'm fishing a tournament and I need every advantage I can get, I'm going to put some scent on my baits. And the one I use is called Liquid Mayhem. I mean, there's a lot of scents out there. It's just what works for me. It's what's proven to me. I'll take Liquid Mayhem and put it on my baits. There's a crayfish scent that works absolutely fantastic. It's going to stay on there a long time. And the fish, they do smell the bait, and it tastes more real to them. It's going to let them hold on to it longer, and you're going to get a better hook set and catch more fish. It's just kind of the way to go. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. I'd love to share some insight. Any questions on anything?
You pretty much use them more than, I mean, I'm sure you got other rods rigged up, but
yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty much what you're, like right now.
Yeah, this is, I just pulled this over. I went home, I pulled this out of my boat locker. This is what I was using just the other day. My 3 favorite baits has to be a drop shot, a jig, and like a frog, because I can cover a lot. I can do pretty much everything with those 3 baits now. And it's just, the jig is just a tool. It's a big fish bait. I can put it where I can't put other baits. I can't throw a crankbait up against a tree. I can't throw a jerk bait around a dock and crash into the dock without the hooks hanging up. I can't throw other baits in the grass without them getting snagged in the grass. So the jig is just it's a great tool for me. I can fish baits I can't fish other baits. So yeah, always have one tied on.
Are you running into any muskies?
I have.
In the spring.
Lake Nockamixon, 42-inch muskie. These are bass fishing lures.
I was going to say they'll eat them. They'll eat them.
They are bass fishing lures, but I have caught countless pickerel over 25 inches on these.
Yeah.
I've caught smallmouth bass. I've caught walleye. I've caught pike actually up in Canada, which is really cool. I'm not used to those down here in Pennsylvania. Big muskie, stripe, you name it. Yep. I mean, if it's a game fish.
Catfish.
Oh, I've caught some giant catfish.
Cat.
I forgot about those. I was actually in a tournament at Nockamixon fishing the jig, and I got a really good bite. Set the hook, and this thing's fighting. I'm like, wait a minute, no, this doesn't feel right. Big 10-pound channel catfish on the Menace jig. I thought it was so cool. Yeah, that's the great thing about the jigs. They imitate anything. You know, it's not just like a one little presentation. This jig here, it can be a bait fish. It can be a crayfish.
It can be a frog even if you're
It can be a frog. There's times I swim it so fast that the jig is only this deep. You know, it'll be swimming this deep, and you'll watch the fish come up and eat it. It's all about using the tool that I make with Menace Baits and finding what the fish want. It's as simple as that.
Nice. All right.
Alrighty, good deal. I have a table over there if you want to check out some of the baits there. Yeah, I appreciate you guys coming out. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. Great. Yep, I live 5 minutes from the park.